Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching us today. So my name is Daria, and I work in St. Lawrence College as the International Student Recruitment Manager. And today we have here with us three of our international student advisors. So we have Francine, who is the International Student Advisor on the Cornwall campus, Carolina, International Student Advisor in Kingston, and Jamie, International Student Advisor in Brockville. So they're all here today to talk to us about travel support letters, travel regulations, quarantine options, and overall online learning, because we've been getting a lot of questions about it, and we know that this is something that all of you are very unsure about, and you're worried about how it's going to look like. Should I travel to Canada? Should I not travel to Canada? How do I travel to Canada? Will I be allowed in? If I am allowed in, where am I going to stay? All those questions we understand are very, very important to you. So that's why we've invited three international student advisors to help clarify all of your doubts. So first, let's start talking about the travel support letters and travel regulations and how this whole thing works, because this is quite a confusing topic. So Francine, can you please tell us who can and who cannot travel at the time, and how do the regulations work?
Okay, so yeah, definitely the best thing to start with. So any international students who received their study permits on or before March 18th are eligible to travel at this time. So if you received yours after that date, unfortunately, you won't be able to travel. And so it's very, very important that you make sure you look at the date when you received your study permit. So even those who received their study permits on or before the 18th, they are exempt from the travel restrictions, but it still doesn't mean that it's a guarantee that you will be allowed to enter Canada. So they are now looking at the reasons for people needing to come here. So they have clarified that they can accept reasons like if you have on-campus components, so that is one. Depending on where you're from, a possibility could be internet connection, that sort of thing. But again, even though that they said that it is a possibility that that can be a non-discretionary reason for travel, it still isn't, unfortunately, a guarantee that you will be allowed in. So what we are doing at St. Lawrence College, we are providing students who have received their study permits on or before March 18th, we can provide you with a travel support letter. So that letter basically states that, that you are a student of St. Lawrence College, that you received your study permit before that time. Also that, what program you're in, if you have on-campus components to your program, or if you have issues with, internet connection, that sort of thing. So we can provide that to students so that you can show that to the Border Services officer. And it hopefully will help your case and help strengthen your case to be able to get into Canada, but still unfortunately isn't a guarantee. We at St. Lawrence College are not the ones who decide who enters the country. It is the Canadian Border Services officers that make that decision once you get here. So again, we will try to support you with that letter, and hopefully it will work, but we can never guarantee that you will be able to enter Canada. So if you are a student who has a study permit and you received it before on March 18th, you just need to contact us, tell us your name, your program, your student number, and we also have to see a copy of your study permit, and then we'll be able to produce one of those letters for you. And it normally takes a couple of days. So, if you're, planning on traveling next week, definitely contact us. We may not be able to turn around on the same day. So if you've made a last minute, I'm going to travel today or tomorrow, it's going to be a little tricky. So try and make sure that you plan a little bit ahead, and know that it takes usually a couple of business days to get those letters to you.
Yeah, and that's important to mention that it's 2 to 3 business days. So in Canada, Saturday and Sunday are the days when we don't work. So sometimes we have students requesting a travel support letter on a Friday, for example, and then on Monday they're reaching out to us saying that it's been 2 days and where's my letter? So it's important to remember that it's 2 to 3 business days. So in that way, Saturday and Sunday don't count. So that's why if you request your letter on Monday, it's very likely that you will receive it on, like, let's say Wednesday, Thursday. But if you request it on Friday, in terms of calendar days, it would be longer. And thank you, Francine, for this very comprehensive information. It is important to stress indeed that at St. Lawrence College, unfortunately, we are not the ones who make the decision of whether you should be or should not be allowed to enter Canada. We have heard some cases where students unfortunately have not been allowed to enter Canada, even though they had all the supporting documentation. And unfortunately, if that's the case, there's nothing we can do. So that's why even if you have received your study permit on or before March 18th, if you can refrain from traveling to Canada, if you can stay in your home country, we highly advise that you do that, because we don't want you to take that risk. Because also it's quite a big financial risk, right? Because you spend all the money on the ticket, and the tickets right now are pretty expensive. And if you're being put on the plane back, nobody's refunding you these funds, right? And let alone all the stress that you have to go through. That's why we advise that if you can stay in your home country, please consider staying in your home country, especially since even if your program has an on-campus component, you will be accommodated. So this online component will be just moved to the next semester, and you will just take it later when you come to Canada. Another important point is indeed the decision of whether you can or cannot enter Canada is made by the Canadian Border Services Agency. However, we've heard of cases of some airlines just not allowing students board, even though they have a travel support letter, they have their study permits issued on or before March 18th, and they have all the supporting documentation. So this is something to keep in mind as well. So we recommend that you contact your airline in advance and ask them about their policies. And it's especially unpleasant if you get stuck somewhere in a connection destination, which is not even your home country and it's not Canada. We definitely wouldn't want you to be in this position. So that's why please assess all your risks and all the pros and cons of coming to Canada. And again, if you still decide that you want to risk it and you try to come to Canada, as Francine said, we're happy to provide you with a travel support letter. But also, please remember that you will have to actually prove that your travel is essential. So if you say that the internet connection, for example, in your city is not very strong, just saying that is not enough. You have to provide some sort of proof for that, right? And the same goes for quarantine options. So you have to provide a solid 14-day quarantine plan. And the quarantine plan in Canada means that, because those regulations differ from country to country. In some countries during quarantine, you're still allowed to go get groceries or food. You're still allowed to see your family. In Canada, you're not allowed to leave the premises where you're staying. You're not allowed to see any friends, to see any relatives. So you have to explain how you're going to get essentials like food and such, and where you're going to stay. So Carolina is going to tell us more about the quarantine options. So Carolina, what do we as St. Lawrence College advise to students to do in terms of quarantine, and how can we help them with that?
Absolutely. So the best thing to do is set up your quarantine plan before traveling to Canada. We have partnered with iSent, so it's the International Center app that we use, so that for students traveling, there's a package on there. If you haven't already downloaded the app, you can do so now, or if you have any questions about it, feel free to connect with us. But on the app, we go over the different hotel options that are within the distance.
Hello, Carolina, you're frozen a little bit. Hello, Carolina.
Oh no.
Okay, I think we lost Carolina for a little bit. So, Francine or Jamie, can any of you help us with outlining the iSent options and the quarantine packages for students?
Yeah, so basically on the iSent app, oh, I think we fully lost her. Once you get on there, you'll be able to see there's a COVID-19 safe, and there's a lot of information on the app to explain to you about, just staying safe during this whole COVID-19 pandemic, also about quarantine, things you have to consider. So the fact that it is 14 days, that you, like Daria was mentioning, you have to be in a place where you cannot leave. You can only go out if you have a yard or, a balcony or something, but you're not able to leave the premises. So there's a lot of information there that you need. So you have to consider when you're making your quarantine plan, where are you going to stay? Because you have to have that set up ahead of time. How you're going to get from the airport to your place of quarantine, and keep bearing in mind that you can't take public transportation. And also, how are you going to get food? How are you going to make sure that you have enough to keep you there for 14 days and so that you don't leave? Without a solid quarantine plan, you will have a really hard time getting into Canada. Luckily with iSent, with us partnering with them, they have these packages that they've put together. Hey, Carolina.
Hi, Carolina.
So we have these packages where, they will take care of the hotel and the transportation and food. So if you go onto iSent, you can see the different packages that we offer, the cost for those packages, and knowing that you have that support. So iSent will be able to support you 24/7. So, when you get there, if you have questions, you're not sure how to get to, the place to, where you're going to be quarantining or where to find your transportation, they'll be able to support you. So that's what's great about that is, you are getting there, you have a solid plan that you can provide the border services officer, and also you don't have to worry about anything. It's all taken care of and you have that support.
Yeah, an important thing is that we've also been asked by students, how do I provide a quarantine plan? How do I write it? What do I say? So the benefit of iSent is that after you fill out a form, you will receive this form as a filled out form in your email. You can just print it out, and that will pretty much be your quarantine plan that you can just show to the border control officer. So Carolina, welcome back. I understand you had some probably connectivity connections. So can you also please, talking about quarantine, what are the options for students who do have some relatives in Canada? Can they stay with them? What are the consequences of that? And for students who don't have anybody and who maybe, are still planning what to do, the iSent is a very good option. So what are the advantages? Where are they going to stay and things like that?
Yeah, so we do recommend for all students, if possible, to go through iSent, only because, as we mentioned before, the quarantine practices here in Canada are very, very strict. So if you do decide that you want to stay with a family member, that would be okay, but then that would mean that your family member would also need to quarantine. So that would mean that for 14 days, if, say, it's your uncle that you're going to be staying with, they are going to have to stay home with you. All of the groceries would need to be bought in advance, so nobody can leave the house. So if a family member or a friend that you're staying with, whether it's 1 or 6 of them, all of you would need to quarantine at the same time, which means that you would all need to take time off work, and then quarantine and stay together. Nobody can leave at all during these 14 days. So the best option that we have and that we suggest to students is to go through iSent, just because there is the airport pickup as well. And then, as Daria mentioned, you can provide proof to the CBSA officer that you do have a quarantine plan. And I'm not sure if this was discussed earlier or not during my interruption, but there is the ArriveCan app as well, so where you are able to put all the information. And you know, when you're traveling and thinking about quarantine, I think the less stressful option may be iSent, only because, you know, you do get to quarantine. And don't forget too that the International Center does have a few activities planned out for our students when they're quarantined. So make sure that you bring a laptop with you, because you will not be able to leave your hotel room at all. So just make sure that you come prepared.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's very great. Thank you for the information. And like a very important point that I also want to stress, Carolina mentioned that the regulations in Canada regarding quarantine are very strict. So indeed, the fine goes up to $750,000 or up to 6 months in jail. So it's actually a very serious thing. So you should take it seriously, and you should make sure you have a solid plan to quarantine, as it's also essential to make sure that you can enter Canada. With iSend, then another advantage is that quite a few colleges have partnered with iSend. So there will be a lot of students coming into Canada with the same kind of, you know, form from iSend. So CBSA, which is Canadian Border Services Agency, CBSA officers will already be used probably by then to seeing this type of document, because there will be, as I said, quite a few people with the same similar looking paper. So this is also something that could work to your advantage. Okay, and now let's move on to the overall process of learning. How will an online semester look like? What do students need? What are the activities and what are the support events that are planned for them to make sure that they're still like engaged and they don't feel like they're missing out? So Jamie, can you please tell us more about that?
Sure. So online learning is going to be a little bit different for those of you who have never done it before. But don't worry, we have lots of great supports, and it's still, I can guarantee that you're still going to have a very, you know, wonderful program. Like you're not lacking in any quality of services with an online service. So the first thing that I would recommend to you is getting your SLC app. Download that, because that will give you access to everything you need to know about your courses, and connect you to your SLC email and to your Blackboard. Now, Blackboard is where you're going to find all your information about your classes. And this is really important to become familiar with Blackboard, because you'll find your course schedule, you'll find what books you need, you'll find out what your assignments are. So it's a really good to get familiar with that even before your classes start. If you do have specific questions about your programs, you can always connect with your program coordinators. So if you go to the SLC St. Lawrence College website and look for your programs, depending on which campus you're on, you should be able to find your program coordinator, and you can email them and ask the specific questions about the courses that you're in, and any sort of questions that you may have. We don't always have all those academic questions or answers for those questions, so connecting with a program coordinator is a great idea, as is communicating with all your teachers. I mean, we can't stress this enough, but if you have questions, don't be shy. Just reach out and ask people for help. We're here to support you. We want you to succeed. We know this is a little bit of a tricky time, and that you have maybe some anxiety or some stress about how this is going to work, but we're here to help you, and we want to see you, you know, right through to graduation day. We do have orientation coming up soon, and I really highly recommend that you sign up for as many different sessions as you can, as this will provide you with a lot of helpful information with your upcoming classes and all the support services that SLC offers, whether it's tutoring or you know, your student success facilitators, or I know the International Center is offering a lot of sessions as well next week, so we hope to see you there as well. But yeah, don't be afraid to ask questions. We're here to help, and we'll help, you know, guide you and support you in every way that we can.
Yeah, and thank you for mentioning the orientation, Jamie. I think it's a very important resource for the students because right now you might have a lot of questions and you may be willing to ask all of them, but at the same time, we encourage you to wait until next week because it's very likely that a lot of your questions are going to be answered during the orientation. So we posted information about the orientation yesterday on Facebook and Instagram, so you can, if you missed it somehow in your email, or if you don't have your SLC app yet, you can just scroll down to the post from yesterday where you will see the full schedule with the information how to register, how to log in, and how to attend the sessions. There will be a lot of important information. And also students are a bit worried. Again, this is something that we have been receiving questions about on social media about the class, the actual like process of learning, like, can I ask questions from my teacher? Can I still engage with my classmates? And the answer would be absolutely. You can always reach out to your teacher in the same way as you would want to reach out to the professor here on campus. Like the only difference of online learning is that you are pretty much talking to each other virtually, like in the same way we're chatting right now, but all the rest, it will be the same and very similar to a regular classroom. So we're very excited about having you on campus whenever it becomes possible, but at the same time right now, you know, the safety of the community and of you is our priority, and that's why we have to adapt and we have to improvise with the change. Another question we have been receiving is about January intake. Students are wondering, so are you sure that the January intake will be you know, on campus? And I wish we had the answer to this question, because honestly, this just depends on the virus, like whether there is a second wave or not, whether there is a vaccine or not. Like what are the travel regulations going to be? Again, students are also asking, well, will I be able to come to Canada like in a month or in 2 months? Unfortunately, we don't know. So this is something that is really changing rapidly depending on the global situation. So we recommend you to, well, monitor the news. Also monitor the IRCC website, canada.ca, because they provide all the updates regarding travel regulations. Sometimes students tend to think that we know more than they do, and we know more than IRCC does. Well, we don't. We rely on the same kind of information. So that's why we cannot really give any predictions. We do hope that in January we are able to open the doors in our classrooms to all of you and welcome all of you on campus. But at the same time, we cannot guarantee that. So we do understand that for some students, they're not willing to study online, despite, you know, despite all our efforts and despite all the advantages of this type of learning as well. So this is okay, and we completely understand that. So that's why if you do want to defer to the next available intake, you absolutely can. Normally we have like a deferral limit that you cannot defer more than a certain number of times, but right now, because the situation is extraordinary and we do understand the circumstances, on a case-by-case basis, we're willing to discuss that with you. So if you're willing to defer, please send us an email at international@sl.on.ca. If you missed that, you can just message us on Facebook or on Instagram, and we will let you know what the email is. But yeah, so this is something that we absolutely can help you with. And also, if you don't get your study permit and if you're willing to start, you know, if you have your approval in principle, this is a new form of documentation that is provided by RCC to students who have submitted their application, but they cannot usually submit their biometrics or medical exam due to the office closures. So if you do have your approval in principle before September 8th, you can start your studies online, and the time that you study online having the approval in principle will count towards your postgraduate work permit. So this is something that's very important, so keep that in mind. But at the same time, approval in principle is not a study permit, so you cannot enter Canada based on the approval in principle. It's not an immigration document. It's approval in principle, so the name itself already pretty much describes what it is. So is there anything else that I missed or that you want to mention, Carolina, Francine, Jamie?
We had over the past couple of weeks, we've held quite a few webinars for new incoming students with starting their program in September. And a very common question was, you know, for those that did receive a study permit on or before March 18th, they are wondering if they can travel sometime in the middle of the semester. So, you know, if they decide that they want to come in October, November, because they do have a valid study permit, or they are able to travel. But what we do recommend for students is, you know, if they are going to travel, and if they do have the proper documentation and they know that, you know, they are ready for to provide all of the necessary things that the CBSA officer needs to see, to travel as soon as possible, preferably before the semester begins or early on, because we don't know what the situation is going to be like, you know, 2 months from now. And also, we don't think it's a very strong case for students coming in the middle of the semester when they've already done some of the online course already in their home country. So we are afraid that perhaps they may be turned away if they do decide to come later on. So if you are one of those students that does need to travel because you have like on-campus component and received your study permit on or before March 18th, to travel as soon as possible.
Yeah, but at the same time, again, all those things about October, November, December, this is something that we think might be the case, but it can always change based on the global situation, based on the IRCC regulations. So please stay tuned for the updates on canada.ca. And of course, we also monitor the IRCC news. So as soon as some new information comes out, we publish it, or we take it into consideration, and we make changes to some of our policies if that's required. So yeah, thank you for adding that, Carolina. Anything
No problem.
else?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just going to say, a lot of students also had questions just about, you know, the online studies and things like textbooks and, you know, what's it going to be like. So again, with textbooks, it's going to depend on each course. So whenever you go into Blackboard and you're able to see all of your courses, it'll tell you if you have a textbook. A lot of them, they are taking into account that a lot of students aren't going to be able to be here. So they have advised faculty to make sure that there are ebooks. So that would be a book that is, you know, fully online. Some teachers may not even have textbooks at all. They may just have all of their notes in Blackboard. So it's really going to depend. There may be some ebooks, and so just to budget for the possibility of some textbooks. And also just, I think a lot of students are worried about what's it going to be like. You know, is it just going to be, I go on there, it's just going to be text and I just fill, you know, do my assignments, but they're going to try and make it interactive as well. So, you know, having discussions or group assignments, showing videos. I'm sure a lot of the faculty are going to be recording their live sessions as well. So, you know, if you miss them, you know, might be able to catch them, a recorded version of it. And so, yeah, there's going to be a lot of different elements to each course. So it's not just going to be, you know, okay, well, I read my textbook and I do my assignments. There is going to be more of that. So, so try not to worry that, you know, like, I think a lot of them, you know, maybe you've not done it before and you're just concerned about what it's going to be like. I mean, each course is going to be different depending on the faculty member. So, so just bear that in mind too. You know, not every course will be the same, but they are going to try and incorporate as many different elements as they can into the courses, just to make it more interesting and to teach, you know, just more, you know, sort of real life experiences or real life teaching, basically.
Absolutely. And another point is that you will need to have an access to a laptop or a computer. You will not be able to do your coursework like on a phone or something like that, or a tablet. You will need an access to a computer. It doesn't have to be a laptop. It can just be a stationary computer. So you have to make sure that you have access to that technology. And it's especially important for the tech-savvy programs such as game programming, business analytics, user experience design, that your computer, whether it's a computer or a laptop, has good processing speed. But an important thing to remember is that the software that you will have to use within the program is already included in your tuition fee, so you wouldn't have to normally purchase any software. So that's an important added benefit. Yeah. Carolina, you also wanted to say something?
I just kind of wanted to put everyone's mind at ease, and it kind of goes along with, you know, what Francine was saying there. We have had so many questions about the online delivery, but you know, whether you are in Canada, whether you are in a different country, everybody's kind of on the same situation. As we could tell before, you know, like even in Canada, the internet can be a little bit wonky sometimes. So, and don't forget that there are so many services available for you, even though we are all working remotely. So again, it doesn't make a difference if you're in Canada or if you're abroad. You know, the Student Success Facilitator team is still available for you, your international student advisors. We will continue having workshops about immigration as well. Tutoring, all that kind of support is still offered to all students. So don't worry. I know that, you know, for some of the students, they may feel a little nervous about the online learning because maybe they haven't done it in the past, but it's also new to many, many other students. So you're not alone. We are here to support you. And as Jamie said before, you know, like we want to see you succeed. So just make sure that you reach out for help to us as soon as, you know, you encounter any difficulties, or you know, have some success stories or some tips, you know, that you want to share with students. That's why it's important for you to follow us on social media, and then that way we can share it with the rest of the students as well.
Yeah. Thank you for the advice, Carolina. I think it's very wonderful. And I think it kind of wraps up our session very, very well. So thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Carolina, Francine, and Jamie for being able to talk to us. I'm sure that you found answers to some of your questions. If you still have some questions, feel free to leave us a comment. Feel free to send us a direct message. We're always there to answer. Yeah, we're really excited about the upcoming start of the semester, and we're really looking forward to meeting all of you, even virtually right now, and then further along the road on campus. So thank you so much for listening, and we'll be in touch and hopefully do something like that again sometime soon. And until then, see you later.
Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.